Hi, and welcome to this episode of Our Data, Our Future. This one is on data dependency and contingency planning. I'm Stephen Oram.
And I'm Robin Ryback, and we are all dependent on data. That is not in question. I think we all know that at this point in our lives, we are all online, including our identities. Stephen, you have your NHS card, I have my Social Security card. Everything's out there. Nothing's on paper anymore. As writers, we have most of us have our manuscripts online, and our world economy, our money is all digital. So we are dependent.
Yeah,
Um, so what happens? Do we have any contingency plans? And let's talk about what happens if we don't have our identities and our lives online anymore
yeah.
for whatever
I think
reason.
the other aspect of that is that's probably less obvious to us, and kind of raised its head a little bit during the COVID time is the whole infrastructure that we rely on, supply chains, getting food to our supermarkets, even getting
Mhm.
energy into our homes, getting
Right.
electricity into our homes and water into our homes is also reliant on data. And so yeah, there's a it's more when people, I don't know, talk to people, they kind of go, oh, my photos, my email, but actually it's as kind of very existent. So yeah, I'd agree, we are completely dependent on data and the moving of it around.
And so then why is it that we don't talk about contingency plans? And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. First of all, there's a lot of fear. I think there's a lot of fear, hidden fear. I don't think we think about what happens when, if and when we lose everything, and that's natural. We tend to not like to think about planning our funeral, and in a way, this would be planning a funeral. And I think we also tend to be a society that's superstitious. If we manifest it, that's what we say now. If we manifest it, if we think about it, it will happen. And, those things, those aspects are part of, I think, why we don't plan. And what are your thoughts on that?
I think, I mean, so I would agree with you there. I think the what was the somebody reminded me of the film. Was it Don't Look Up? The kind of where there's a meteorite coming to Earth and nobody wants to, like, so there's an element of that I think going on. But I think also it's kind of like, what can you do about it? It's so big and so out of our control, and we are offered lots of tech. Tech will solve the problems that tech causes. Um, so I think there's a mix of things going on, but I don't think that should stop us thinking and talking about the what if. That's kind of, we're both sci-fi writers. That's kind of what we do, isn't it?
It is. It is. And I think one of the issues, a valid issue, why there's not a big discussion about it, is we don't want to spend 75% of our time on data management that way and disaster mitigation.
Right.
It doesn't serve anybody you know, to spend our time thinking about what if when it hasn't happened. But I think we do need that. And it's a matter of what we spend our time on. And uh,
Mm.
I think you're right about us being sci-fi writers. That's where the conversation happens. People talk about far future
Mm.
after the disaster, and they're building a new world.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. The whole kind of thinking about all the different possibilities, what the future might look like, how people might act in it. I think there's also one thing that's occurred to me is there's also a historical thing here as well, I think, which is like, if we stop, if our money disappears because there's no data anymore, Well, how does that differ from the moments where hyperinflation has made money, the money that people have, completely pretty much worthless? So and the whole, if it is losing your emails and your photos and all the rest of it, well, we've had earthquakes that have destroyed lots of heritage and stuff. So there's probably some lessons to look at in the past, but I agree, the kind of looking into the future, thinking about the possibilities, how might this play out, is kind of what we're kind of the arena that we occupy, isn't it?
It is, and I think, to close, I would like to ask anybody out there who wants to start planning for data, sort of data disaster and contingency planning. Can we start thinking about it, please? Can we start having a discussion? And I think, Stephen, our discussion can be the first in sort of these micro discussions about, planning ahead. I think we need to start discussing why we're not discussing it.
And just in that, I'd like to drop into that ocean of discussion or whatever it becomes, the notion of. So I personally, I think approaching this rather than sticky plaster, what do we do if this thing fails or this thing fails? I think there's a kind of behavior, society behavior kind of thing. And I personally think it's about community. It's about, if something goes wrong, knowing your neighbors, relying on your neighbors, feeling comfortable and all the rest of it is going to be where you have to start. So I would like to pitch that in as a kind of beginning thread of, is that our is that the basis of our contingency planning?
And yeah, and I think this is a great place to end, which is creating scaffolding and creating infrastructure in our humanity and within our communities.
Absolutely.
Right. So thank you. Great
Thank you.
discussion.